daughter, and was one of our all-time favorite interns.
Yeah.
We still remember her and her helpfulness in our office. Justin Wade is with me, our Deputy Chief of Staff. I know we are on a tight time frame here, so I'll be very brief. We want to have plenty of time for the usual discussions.
I was just going to mention that we had talked about extending the meeting an additional 10 minutes, and anyone who can stay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. I still would prefer to take your questions and comments for the most part, and that's what we'll do. I'll say just a couple of things, but I do want to express my gratitude to Rich especially and all of you for the recurring invitation. I think almost every year, I've been here over the time of my service. I don't know that I've ever been here when we've had a barbecue spread, so looks like we hit the jackpot this time, but really glad to be here and to see all of you. In thinking about how we might kick things off today, I must say there's a wealth of topics that we could deal with. I don't think the discussion has ever been as lively or as heated about national politics and our national government as it is at this moment. But trying to anticipate that is pretty much a roll of the dice. So I will instead talk about a couple of areas where I am involved directly in a leadership position, just by way of indicating how I'm spending my time on what I'm working on, and then we'll just open it up to whatever you want to raise. But having Ukraine mentioned at the mission trip to Ukraine does remind me of how much that our House Democracy Partnership, which I am the ranking Democrat, the former chairman of, the parliament-to-parliament work we've done for many years in the Congress, how central Ukraine has been to our efforts. We really are pulling for that country, and we're, I hope, doing more than just offering moral support. We have worked with their parliament for years now, going to Ukraine, bringing their members here, bringing their staff here, engaging in training, engaging in all kinds of cooperative efforts to bring that parliament along. And they have been willing and eager participants, although that country is struggling. And there's a long way to go for Ukraine to firmly establish itself as a member of the Western family of nations, or for that matter, as simply an independent and self-determining nation, which is what we should wish for every nation. So that is a central involvement of mine. Justin is my main staff person working on that, and that's one of the most rewarding things we do. And one reason it's rewarding, even in this environment, is that it is totally nonpartisan. Totally. No qualifications to that. The chairman is a member from Illinois. We work together, determined to put forward a united front as the diplomatic arm of the U.S. House of Representatives. And we're working in countries that have had an autocratic past, often a past of civil conflict, and of course, in the case of Ukraine, some very real threats right on their borders today. And by the way, we understand very well that Ukraine needs to be a good neighbor to Russia. What Ukraine does not need is for Russia to regard this country as their sphere of influence and subject to their political and economic determination. And that's something any country should wish for. So critical to that success is going to be a functioning, effective, legitimate parliament. And in partnership with the parliament, we're trying to help make that happen. Of course, we have in mind also Afghanistan by virtue of the President's recent address. And I have to say about Afghanistan that our relationship with the Parliament of Afghanistan has been a bright spot. It's a little-known story. That's a struggling parliament. I mean, people with incredible courage. You walk into the Afghan parliament, you see on the front row 3 pictures sit in seats. Assassinated colleagues. Assassinated colleagues in that very session of the parliament. And the women who serve there, I mean, there's plenty of corruption in the Afghan parliament, don't get me wrong. Plenty that's wrong with the Afghan parliament, but it is a little known bright spot. And whatever the president thinks about it, he says we're not building nations, we're just killing terrorists. Well, that's not quite the distinction. We may not be comprehensively building nations, but if you think for one moment that military prowess alone is going to save Afghanistan or Ukraine, think again. Those countries have to govern themselves in an honorable and legitimate and inclusive way, and it's extremely important for us to figure out how to make that happen. That's what the House Democracy Partnership is all about, and I'm very committed to it and will remain so. My second area is appropriations, and there the picture is it's pretty muddled right now. We, as you may understand, we're nearing a moment of truth. It's too bad we don't anticipate moments of truth a little earlier, but we seem to always have to have a near-death experience at the end of September to make us get our budget act together and keep the lights on for another year. That is not a good way to run this government or any other. And we should never, never assume this is normal just because it's gone on for so long. So we have from the president, I have to say, a budget that even his own party has rejected. The majority party, the Republicans, have put together an alternative budget that is still below sequestration levels in terms of the funding of basic functions. My leadership role is as the ranking member on the Transportation and Housing Appropriations Subcommittee. And I can tell you, at those levels, there's no way to write a bill that most Republicans will want to vote for, let alone Democrats. So we can beat our chest all we want about these super low budget numbers, but when it comes down to actually writing practical bills to make government work, we have to have some accommodation. We have had accommodation each of the last 4 years. Trouble is, it always comes at the end of the day. It always comes with things about to shut down. But yet we've had a budget patch, as we call it, and we've written bills that keep us chugging along another year. That's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative. The question this year is whether we can do even that. I don't know what to think when I hear the president say he's going to shut the government down. He said he wants to do it to get his funding for a border wall. I can tell you, without even asking, that the cooler heads in the room are saying, watch out. Watch out. Shutting the government down is not smart, it's not productive. In fact, it's grossly disruptive and divisive. And so we need to have another budget agreement. And once we have the budget agreement, I can promise you, my chairman and I will work cooperatively to write a transportation appropriations bill. And that is true of others as well. We value our cooperation on appropriations. We understand that we don't represent a party, we represent the institution, we represent the power of the purse. And the legitimacy of that and the effectiveness of that depends on our ability to work cooperatively. We cannot do it, though, if the Tea Party is dictating numbers that simply don't add up. So that's the question right now. The next 4 weeks are going to be very, very trying time, because we have to somehow get past the rhetoric and get past the fireworks and get down to business on a bipartisan basis. Like I said, as we've done the past 4 years, do a budget patch, do these appropriations bills, have a minimum of dislocation with those who are trying to serve this country, and get our house in order. That's the main challenge that we're going to face on the Appropriations Committee, and that the Congress as a whole is going to face. And that's going to be a test of leadership, of course, for our institution, but also for the president, who's going to have to figure out whether he wants to be part of the solution or to make the problem worse. And the jury is still out on how that's going to go. Lots of other things we could talk about, but let me stop with those 2 snapshots and see what kind of questions and comments you might have. Yes, sir.
How can you possibly get a legitimate parliament in Ukraine when the most critical part of their real estate is under Russian occupation? Crimea, I'm talking about.
Well, Crimea is critical, all right, but it is not the should never accept, don't get me wrong. But in terms of the functioning of the government in Kyiv and the functioning of the parliament, it has proceeded. And the equal threat, of course, is in eastern Ukraine, where the Russian puppet regime is occupying territory, just as it is in Georgia, just as it is in Moldova. This is a pattern that we are very familiar with by now, and that we need to stop it. By the way, that's why we voted with almost unanimity. This is one thing where Republicans and Democrats have come together. We voted with unanimity to keep those sanctions on Russia and to insist that this was simply not acceptable to be occupying a sovereign state. So, Ukraine's under heavy duress from Russia. Ukraine is under a lot of duress from within. Corruption, internal divisions. But I would say that the Parliament of Ukraine, under these circumstances, has functioned as a legitimate democratic institution. It has some leadership that aspires to do better, and that's what we're trying to be good partners in helping to bring about.
Since you're on the Transportation Committee, where are we in the United States about having a high-speed train down the East Coast, a high-speed train down the West Coast, the rest of the world, mature world, Europe has high-speed trains, Japan has them, China has them. It seems like we're the only place without high-speed trains.
Well, that's about right in the industrialized world. And even our most ambitious plans for intercity rail don't involve what the Japanese would call high-speed rail. Anybody taking the train lately to Charlotte? Good service?
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. I agree. We've got what passes for high-speed rail in our country up in the northeastern corridor, and we've gotten the speeds up nicely between Raleigh and Charlotte, and we use Recovery Act money to do that, straighten the curves out, separate the grade crossings, and so on. It's a wonderful way to travel, and it's ideally suited, I think, not for the transcontinental travel. That's kind of a vacation, hobbyist kind of thing, but regional travel. And I would say Washington to Atlanta qualifies in a major way for this, in the same way that the Northeast Corridor has made good advances. I think we need to invest in this, and it will not be super high-speed rail, but it'll be good, efficient service, averaging around 120, 130 miles an hour. I think that we'd be lucky. We're fortunate to move ahead on that front right now. Unfortunately, the leadership of the Congress, the Republican leadership, has refused any funding for this. The last funding we got for intercity rail was the Recovery Act. And so we have a job to do in building bipartisan support for this. I think it's not something the federal government will totally or should totally pay for. In North Carolina, it's been a partnership effort. Those North Carolina funded trains are helped but not totally supported by the federal appropriations. So it's something. Amtrak, of course, offers decent service, but we underinvest in Amtrak very, very badly, especially in the roadway, in what it takes to get from Richmond to Raleigh, for example, to make that route viable. There's a huge backlog of need there. Sir.
Talking about Ukraine, we seem to get involved in a lot of international peacekeeping or nation building, whatever you want to call it. Why didn't we do more in Ukraine? Is the war, in your opinion, that you think we could have done successfully, or was it just too late?
Well, that's still an area of active debate, or at least I hope it is. I hope we're not in the process of disengaging from situations like that. That's not to say we can be the world's policeman or engage in every trouble spot in the world. But Ukraine and Moldova, which is our sister country here in North Carolina, we've had a lot of involvement here in Moldova, and also Georgia. These are our countries where NATO stops. controversial, but I think in the end, well-advised expansion of NATO into the Baltics and right up to the area we're talking about. And that is an ironclad commitment, and we have to make sure that there's never any doubt about our commitment to NATO. Now, in a different world with a different history, you might say that was imprudent. That was imprudent to come so close to Russia. But if you were a Czech or if you were a Pole, you wouldn't think it's imprudent. You would think you were bound to seize that opportunity when it came to come into the Western family of nations and have that kind of protection. And I think we did the right thing in doing that, although people still debate about it. Now, I don't know that we will do the same thing with Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, but I do think we should and can and should insist on self-determination for those countries. And we should figure out ways, short of an Article 5 guarantee, but figure out ways to deter Russian aggression in those situations. And of course, that's what President Obama was striving for with the sanctions regime that was imposed on Russia over Ukraine. And that Congress unanimously has now said this president cannot lift, cannot waive. It's one of the things we've agreed on. Now, at the edges here, there are a lot of questions. What kind of weaponry do we sell or give Ukraine? One problem the Ukrainian invasion solved for us was the Georgian question. We've been very skittish about what NATO did in Georgia. Now, under the threat of this Ukraine situation, NATO and the U.S. have a joint operation in Georgia for training, for equipping. It's short of a NATO guarantee, but it still is a way of supporting those countries and deterring a Russian mischief.
Ukraine is part of NATO.
Ukraine is not part of NATO. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Ukraine is not part of NATO, and therefore it's a particularly delicate question. What do you do to support Ukraine?
Right.
Given that fact, and given the fact that it's not likely to be part of NATO. I think that's just the fact of the matter. And so the question is, how do we calibrate this, and how do we offer? Because, like I said, we're not unlike the Russians. The Russians see the world in zero-sum terms. You are for us, or you're against us. You're part of our sphere of influence, or theirs. That is not the approach that our country stands for, or that we should take. We understand these are Russia's neighbors. We understand their relationships have to be peaceful and productive. But we also understand that these are sovereign nations, democratic aspirations, a right to self-determination. And that should mean the ability to have cordial political relationships on both sides, economic relationships. I mean, that's what we're after. We're not looking for Ukraine to become a full-fledged member of the West. That's Ukraine's decision, not ours. Yes, sir.
Turning to the Americans, and there's Venezuela sitting down there.
Excuse me?
There's Venezuela.
Yes, there is.
And there's also Cuba. How are we working with those? Neither one looks too good at the moment.
Venezuela is headed for big trouble, I think.
Yes.
Big trouble. And I don't know. I'm not sure there's much that we or anybody else can do in the near term to avoid that.
They're headed for famine.
Excuse me?
They're headed for famine.
Well, they're headed for famine and for, one heavy dose of civil conflict. It's already underway. So we should be working with with regional partners in extending support for some kind of negotiating process, for some kind of certainly exerting pressures on the regime to be more inclusive and so on. I mean, there are things we could be doing, but it's not clear what would work there right now. It's a desperate situation. In Cuba, it's also disappointing that Cuba has not moved forward on the democratic front, but it's also clear to me that 50 years of U.S. policy in trying to isolate Cuba has not worked in that respect or any other. And so I supported strongly the President Obama's opening toward Cuba, and am very sorry to see it rolled back by President Trump. We'll see how complete the rollback really turns out to be.
Do you think that President Trump is going to survive his first term in office?
I have the strong sense, as probably many of you do, that this just can't go on. I say that without knowing exactly what I mean. I mean, I can think of a number of ways this goes. If you're talking about President Trump actually being subject to removal, then I think you are in the territory of the Russian investigation and how that goes. Of course, that has to run its course. You're also in the territory of very serious and unprecedented conflicts of interest. What the tipping point there is, and that's uncharted territory. So, and what's more, any kind of tipping point is going to have to involve the Republican majority as well as people like me. So I think that tipping point is pretty. It's going to have to be pretty severe kinds of conditions to get there. What, of course, is preferable is for the president to right the ship himself. And I'm increasingly skeptical that he has the wherewithal, just the psychological and personal wherewithal to do that. We all are glad General Mattis is there. Glad General Kelly's there. But the character, the temperament, the competence of the man at the top is very, very important. And I'm not too glib these days about kind of confidence in the balance of powers to make it all work.
He gets no help from the press.
Excuse me?
He gets no help from the press whatsoever.
Well, he's certainly doing everything he can to delegitimize the press. And if that's a smart tactic, then I guess we'll see. I happen to think that the press in this country needs to be diverse, needs to be free, and that for the top official of this country to be making of the press a whipping boy is a very, very bad and dangerous idea.
But do you believe with the removal of the current president, if that were to be a thing, would that pause or halt his current agenda through vice president, or would it just, move it toward the west and whatever?
I don't want to speculate too much about this. It's all hypothetical, but I know Mike Pence pretty well. I've observed him anyway. I can't say we're personal friends, but I know what he's about. I think he'd be a very different president. He would not have the same mercurial temperament and the kind of wild fluctuations that you have with Trump. But you would have a very hardcore religious right agenda. And that's who Pence is. That's who he's always been. And that's what you should expect.
I got a couple questions. I'm not sure I'll be able to address either one. I just moved here a year and a half ago from the DC area. The water quality in Wake County is horrible. I don't know if you could address that. I'd ask you about your opinion for that. And then the second thing is, where do you see the approval there?
The Water Quality Act, I'm begging off on. The water quality of Wake County, I'm begging off on. There are, of course, federal regulations that any water system has to abide by. The water is drawn from the Corps of Engineers Lake. I've over the years worked to make sure that lake had good capacity and was in good working order. But, I don't know exactly what you're talking about in terms of the quality here. As far as I know, there's no health standards that have actually been violated. But after a certain point, after certain minimal standards are met, then that is no longer a federal issue. That's a matter of local determination. The Affordable Care Act just came from a 2-hour session this morning trying to game that out with a group of policy analysts. We have struggled in this country to meet the standard of universal or near universal health care coverage. And so there was a more narrow focus on how do you cover people who are not covered at work or not covered by government programs like Medicare. How do you fill that gap? That's a very difficult market, very difficult to devise a remedy. But that's what the Affordable Care Act was designed to do, to figure out how to get a sufficiently diverse risk pool. And that's what the individual mandate is all about. How to get a sufficient risk pool to have an insurance system for that segment of the market, that uncovered segment of the market, to work. And it has been a struggle. But as you know, those marketplaces are stabilizing now. And they tell us in North Carolina, Blue Cross has revised its numbers now. They say not only is this working for us in North Carolina, not only are we making money on the Affordable Care Act, but if you would stabilize the Affordable Care Act and make certain it's not going to be disrupted, we would have a premium increase next year of 0. It was 8% at first, now they say 0. So ironically, just as there's all this threat to the system, ironically, these systems are shaking out and working pretty well in most of the country. There are some things that need to be done to stabilize that and to make it work better. I would hope now that the attempts to repeal have failed as they have in Congress, that maybe we could turn to a more constructive bipartisan effort. We're not looking for vast expansion or new horizons. We're looking just to stabilize this and make it work, and that is going to involve some tweaking of the marketplace. And honestly, it's going to mean that we do expand Medicaid. Big mistake, I think, in this state not to expand Medicaid. In the states where Medicaid's been expanded, it seems to have worked very well, and I do believe that's part of the solution. So that would be my answer as to how to make this work going forward. It's probably not very likely that that's the course that the president will choose. So in the meantime, he has some decisions to make. Is he going to continue to administer the low-income subsidies? That's the main thing. But the reinsurance program, the reinsurance to even out the marketplace, is he going to permit that to go forward, or is he going to sabotage that? He makes the prediction that the system is imploding. Actually, the system implodes only if he lets it implode, or if by his own actions makes it implode. I believe that's an honest assessment of where this is. And of course, I very much hope that we shouldn't do anything that cuts out 22, 24 million people of health coverage. We should make that coverage better. We should make it more affordable. This is something we should be able, as basic as this is, it should be like public education or other issues. We should be able to work together on this as a common good. But unfortunately, it's become the most divisive of issues. And so for that reason, it's very hard to give a confident answer to your question.